Hi there, hope you're doing really well. I'm excited to share with you a roadmap. This is an episode that I've been thinking about doing for the longest, but I've waited for my wife to create a nice graphic, which is the roadmap. And my wife also helped me creating a link where you can download it. So we have that now. And so I really want to review it with you. Some of you may be familiar with it. It is the same roadmap I talk about in This is Natto. And basically, I over the years, I've realized that when I wrote both This is Natto and Said It Forget It, when I created the curriculum for BedTyme and the Sleep Coach Schools group coaching program, I sort of laid things out in the same way, which I've found to be very helpful. Start with kind of like what helps the most in the beginning, and then sort of go from there. So this has become sort of a roadmap, which is always a little tricky because it's not like if you do this, then this will happen like that. But it kind of gives you a sense of where you're at and what's maybe best to study next, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to review this roadmap with you, and then there'll be a link in the description here where you can download it as well. And you can use the roadmap to find episodes here on the channel that may be helpful, or if you want to buy This is Natto, it's kind of the same thing. But again, it's just something that gives you a little bit of sense of where you're at and where you may want to study next. So let us take a look here at the roadmap, and we'll go over it together. It starts off in Oz, and we can take a quick look. Here's the entire roadmap. It has like 8 steps, if you will. And it starts off in Oz. So what does that mean? Well, Oz means that, like, Alice, you are not, you're bewildered. Okay. You are, you don't know what's going on at all. Bizarre things are happening. You have no clue. And it's often very scary. It's a very scary place to be in. It is, again, because you have basically no understanding whatsoever what's going on. So if you find yourself, like, as you're hearing this, like maybe you're new to the channel and you are just really, really scared, you're not sleeping at all, strangely you're jerking, you have like heartbeat palpitations, it just seems bizarre. This may apply to you. You're in Oz, and then it says here, action needed, study the perceived threat model. Okay. And this you'll find in the This is Natto playlist. You'll understand what the perceived threat is, and that will give you a sense of what's going on. You'll understand that, I'm trying to run away from something that isn't a real threat. Okay, and that takes you from out of Oz, out of this complete wilderness, and onwards. Now, if you look at step 1 here, I call this the reverse rabbit hole, which again is like you're kind of leaving Oz, going back to Kansas, if you will. And so in this phase, you know that you're scared and anxious. You know that is the reason you had trouble sleeping. You understand why the insomnia happens, but you think that your case is kind of different. You think that there's some unique aspects of your insomnia that that tells you that, oh, this may not help this may help others, but this won't help me, and things of that nature. So action needed, detective work, which in this channel often translates into like, listen to those success stories, or just listen, read comments, and just engage with the content here. And what I mean with detective work is like, study others with insomnia and see that your troubles are the same. You may think that, oh, I'm peeing all the time. That must be really strange. No, that's very common. Or I have this out of body sensations. That must be strange. No, that's very common. I have these jerks, the whole body jerks. That must be, no, that's very common. So when you spend time understanding that there's nothing strange or unusual with your situation, then things get a little easier there. So that's the reverse rabbit hole. And the next step here is what I call Kansas. Okay. So in Kansas, you know that your insomnia is driven by fear. You also know that it's nothing particularly unique going on. It's the same as other people, but you don't necessarily understand why it keeps going. Kind of like, I understand where it comes from and that I'm not unique, but I still have trouble sleeping. So action needed here. Study the trouble and desire model. Understand that your desire for sleep is what is causing the trouble sleeping. This can be so tricky to see when you're in the loop. But again, you can go to the This is Natto playlist, which is also linked to in this description. And you can study that trouble and desire model, and you understand why it keeps going. So let's go forward to step number 3 here, which is, I call it chasing arrows, which means that you understand the chasing arrows. You understand that the desire for sleep is causing the trouble sleeping, and the trouble sleeping causes more desire for sleep, et cetera, et cetera. You understand why you're having this insomnia, but you wonder what role circumstances, like, you know, these things that happened in the past, you know, medications, things in your environment, like you wonder how much role they play, you know. And action needed here is study the gas and brake model. Okay, also in the playlist I mentioned, This is Natto. It's also in both of my books. Understand how sleep is regulated, and that external factors cannot produce sleep, and past events cannot prevent sleep from happening. So the gas and brake model is really helpful when you have these kind of questions about like circumstances, and it's really helpful in truly understanding sleep. Okay. So let's move forward to number 4. I call that easy rider, which is, you know, in a state where you're, you know, you have done most of the studying and education. Really, you understand sleep. You understand why you've had so much sleeping. Your foundation is set. Okay. And action needed is letting go sleep efforts and attempts of controlling sleep, which is actually sort of like non-actions. And so these first, if you scroll down here, you can see that I said that step 1 and 4, 1, 2, 4 are active, or set it. And like set it and forget it, I also talk about this, like this kind of an active phase, which is set it, which is about learning and understanding. And then the next steps are passive. They're sort of the forget it part of this. So now the next steps here are more descriptive, but the thing to do or not to do, if you will, is all the same. So let's just go over them. So from easy rider and forward, it is letting go sleep efforts, right? And that is understanding that the things I do to sleep, try to sleep, is actually preventing me from sleeping, and kind of moving away from that. And then and there's much more to learn again, but you just spend time on the channel and you learn everything you need. And then the cool down happens, which is like you start to become less worried, but you may not sleep more or better. Like this is very common, and often it's actually that the hyperarousal that comes from anxiety is kind of replaced by curiosity. You'll just wonder why you're not sleeping more, etc. But still, that's a kind of a distinct phase for often that you're like, you're less worried, but you don't really feel that you sleep more, which is always very encouraging. And then you have 6, which is like the reward. I call that. You sleep better, but you feel more tired, which is very, very common, which is because the hyperarousal is going down, and kind of unmask all the fatigue that the hyperarousal has been masking. And then 7, I call post-game, which is you sleep well and feel rested. And so why isn't this kind of the last thing? Well, it is because it's a little tricky. Like you sleep well and feel rested, and you may still not completely understand why you sleep well, okay? You may still think that you did something and that you did something and now you're sleeping well, okay? So the final step here is what I call immunity, which is you sleep well and you fully understand why you had trouble sleeping, and you understand that there's nothing you can do to sleep, okay? This kind of sounds shocking if you're in like those early stages, but when you're in this kind of, when you've gone through this, if you will, then you see that, yeah, there's nothing I can do to sleep. And if that makes you feel kind of relieved, then you're in this immunity stage. You completely understand why you had trouble sleeping. You will have nights where you sleep a little for this and that reason, but you will understood everything so well that you'll never ever struggle with sleep again. And that's the power here of education and insight, which is that once you and it's the reason also why I called it I call this roadmap from insomnia to immunity, which is that when you are in the state of like you see everything so clearly, then you will never have trouble sleeping again. And many on the channel have mentioned that they understand this. They understand that they will never go back to struggle. So I hope this overview of the roadmap was helpful to you. Again, to download it, check the link in the description. And again, you can use the roadmap to browse the channel and just get a sense of where you are and things of that nature. So yeah, hope this was helpful. Any questions, comments, etc., please post them in the comment section. And you can always also head over to the website if you want to leave a message for open class, or find out how you can work with myself if you like to do that. All right, super nice having you here, and look forward to having you back real soon. Until then, take it easy.